I'm going to go ahead and officially get us kicked off. It looks like we've got a few folks that are joining us already. Thank you guys for joining us for the April B2B Growth Show. Always excited to get connected with you guys every single month. We always try to bring you great topics. This is a topic that is super important. And we also have one of my very, very favorite people and one of my very favorite guests that we've had on the show before. Jen Allen-Knuth is like one of the most top minds, in my opinion, when it comes to modern B2B selling, like what is really working right now. And we met on LinkedIn, which is a crazy thing, but I guess that's part of modern B2B selling. And, and so Jen's going to join us today. She's going to give us the seller's perspective. Jen, thank you so much for coming on today and helping us tackle this important topic.
Yes, I'm pumped to be here. I love all the chat happening over here. I think one thing that sometimes happens is people just chat to the speakers, but chat between each other. I think those are the best sessions. I learned from those sessions too. So thanks to everyone for being here. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so as we're going through, we do have an agenda. We'll drop that a couple of times in the chat so you can follow along. I do want to introduce Lauren and Jessica to you as well. So Lauren, you've seen her face many, many times. She's our moderator here on the Riverside side of things. You want to say hi, Lauren?
Yeah, hi everybody. Hope you're having a great day and just really looking forward to the conversation today. I'll be in the chat. I'll be dropping the agenda there shortly. And if you have any questions, just drop them and we'll get to them.
Yeah, and Lauren, don't forget to share some juicy hot takes if you've got some as we go through today, for sure.
I mean, if I've got any hot takes, they will be shared. They will not be withheld. So.
Awesome. And then for those of you that are watching on the live stream, we've got Jessica. You can't see her face because she's managing the LinkedIn live stream, but she'll be monitoring your comments there. And we'll be sure to try to get to everybody's comments and questions as we go through it today. So we love to see the chat, as Jen said. So excited just to have you guys participate with us, but also participate with one another. So let's take a look at the agenda. I know you guys have it there. The first thing that we've got that we wanted to cover is thank you all for sharing your survey responses. I think we got over 100 responses as you guys were registering for this event that kind of gave us a really good perspective on kind of the state of the union for how you see the world of sales and marketing alignment. And I took all of that data, I dropped it into ChatGPT, and I asked it to give me some good feedback back. And what I wanted to do, Jen, if you don't mind, let's just start there. Let's look at the data. I'm going to share my screen real quick if I can figure out where that button is. So there it is. I've had so many challenges today, guys. Everybody's laughing because they know all about it.
He did it!
Yay! I'm sharing my screen. There's survey results. It's amazing. So there's really three things that kind of came out of the data that really we wanted to touch on. And Jen, I would love to get your perspective on this. The first piece was where are deals stalling? And like I said, there were over 100 people that took the survey. And what we found is something that didn't surprise me too much, that deals are really stalling between that discovery box and that consensus box. And Jen, I'd love to get your perspective. What are you seeing out there? Why do you think that's happening?
So I'm seeing a lot of things. I'll pull out on two things that I'm seeing a lot. So one, I think a lot of companies right now feel pressure, and I understand it and I empathize with it, to release sort of shiny objects, right? Like I was scrolling through LinkedIn yesterday and it was like 4 posts in a row about, we just released our new agent. And it's like, man, they all sound the same. But so everybody's in this position, right? Where it's like, we've got to show we're keeping up with AI, which means we're releasing new tools and tech, which means marketing's probably throwing a ton of effort behind it and trying to publicize it and all the things we should be doing. But from a prospect perspective, what I'm seeing is there's a lot of sort of curiosity around, let me see what's out there. I'll poke around, but it doesn't necessarily mean I have a business problem I'm looking to solve, right? It just might be my CEO is in my ear, or my PE partner or my VC partner is in my ear saying, you need to find ways to operationalize AI. So I'm out there curious and I'm learning, but I never went into these calls with the intention to change anything, which is fine, right? That is totally understandable. The problem is, I think on the sales side, there's a lot of sellers who don't know the difference. And so I know the mistake that I used to make, I sold for 18 years, was I would hear someone was really interested in, wow, that's a better way. And that, wow, that's really interesting. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, great, I've got a champion. Not realizing that someone's curiosity in my product does not mean they're going to risk their political capital to then socialize it with the rest of the buying group, with the CFO, to ask for budget, to ask for time. And so in my opinion, this is a place I would candidly kind of point the finger a little bit more at sales as to why we lose here, is because we're in such an interest or such a hurry to get to, let me show this to the broader team, that we're walking ourselves into it. That's one. The second thing is, I think we're seeing there's sort of this desperation, and I say this lovingly, to hit our meeting targets and to take meetings where we can give them, and any sort of sign or sniff of intent, we're like, let's jump around it and surround it. Oh, you went to my website? Like, let me set up a call with you. Not realizing that when we start all the way down here in the org chart, it is a hard climb to get back up, right? Not just for us, but for our champion as well. And not everyone who wants to buy our product is going to want to be a champion internally. And so I think this, where the deals are stalling, makes complete sense if you look at it that way, because it's hard for our buyer, it's hard for our seller, and it doesn't matter, you know, if the person actually likes the product or not, when it comes time to saying, now I need you to bang your fist on the table for change.
Yeah. So you know what? We can end this growth show right now because Jen said it's all the seller's fault, and we have nothing to do with it. Yeah. Thank you. We can all go blame sales. I'm not going to let the marketing team off the hook though that easy, because I agree. Jen, everything you said was right on point. But here's the thing that marketers, you know, sellers have that pipeline and meeting goal quota and all those types of things. But marketers, man, they want to show they're doing their job. And so, hey, if I can take somebody that's in passive learning mode, like you're talking about, I'm researching, I'm just trying to stay up to date. And oh, maybe I came to a webinar. Oh, maybe I downloaded this thing. And marketers love to flick that over the fence without any context to sellers and go, hey, we did our job. We generated that lead. Man, sales just sucks. They don't follow up with anything. And the reality is none of us are thinking about the buyer the way that we should and dealing with the challenges that they have, which is a great point that you made.
That is a very fair characterization. So I spent 18 years selling, and then I did this job called chief evangelist, and it's a more common job now. But basically what it was born from was exactly what you said. So I said, look, as a salesperson, I've got the white paper leads about the economic crisis that have nothing to do with our product. I'm like, what do you want me to do with this person? Like, they're reading a white paper about the economy, and now you want me to pitch a sales methodology? Like, I'm missing the link there. But then I also had marketing saying, we're investing all this time, effort, and money into creating this content only for it to sit there. So when I became chief evangelist, I essentially became a divorce attorney between the two parties, where my job was to be the voice of the buyer, because both sides logically are going to fight for their green dashboard. Like, they're going to fight for the thing that makes them look good, because we all have a target on our backs. Like, it is the unfortunate state of the world when you're working right now. But that said, when no one is thinking about right, but forget who's right and who's wrong and whose dashboard is green, yellow, or red or whatever, what is this like for the buyer who read a white paper and now is just being barreled with emails to take a demo on something they never expressed to begin with? Like, that was often my role, was just being a voice of reason for the buyer to say, can we logically understand why these two things don't equate to one another? And so I think having somebody, which arguably should be the CEO, but having somebody in the middle to say, let's just let the buyer situation dictate what we do here is pretty rare, I think. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, and it comes down to lack of respect for the buyer journey and lack of respect for what we call the learner stage at Vindy, because people are learning, right? And for a long, long period of time, all the data that we've seen coming out is that stage between impression or contact added to your CRM to hand raise to close one, it gets longer and longer every single year. This next one's pretty interesting too, and it kind of ties to what we've already said. And I hear this a lot, Jen. I don't know if you hear it so much on the selling side, but I hear it on the marketing side, and that is, we don't know how to turn engagement into next steps. Like, we're putting great content out there. People are engaging with it. They're coming to our webinars. They're doing all kinds of things. But man, I do not know how to get them over the tipping point. Like, I'm nurturing them. I'm sending personalized emails. We're doing ABM campaigns. We got sellers helping, but man, we cannot get those engagers to become hand raisers. Do you see that a lot on your end?
Yes. And it's our own fault. Like this, I will blame both sales and marketing. We are both in such a hurry to show our product. all we want is like, give me that ability to get on the phone with you and show you what we can do. Because I think if you just see it, of course you'll change, right? Which in and of itself is flawed thinking. But the reason is if we really stop and slow down and thought about the environment we're in, I've posted about this. I can't think about a time since '08 when we have been in a more uncertain time. Like even if you have decades of tenure as a CMO, CRO, CIO, you are still sitting there being like, what are you doing? And what are you doing? And is it working? And should I be doing that too? Which in a sales and marketing environment is about the best possible situation you can ask for. Because when people feel certain, they're unlikely to change. So now we're in this environment of massive uncertainty. And instead of taking a step back and saying, let's help people learn what are other companies doing and how is it working and what are the pros and cons and what are the alternative options, we're just pushing our freaking solution down everybody's throat. So the example I give is this. If I had an AI SDR to sell, which I never would, no offense to anybody who sells it, but let's say I did, instead of sending the same message every AI SDR sends, which is we can help you book 50 more meetings this month by having an automated, personalized, whatever. Instead, what if I said, we've been working with 20 organizations in the manufacturing space to trial and error what things are working from an automated perspective or an agent perspective versus what are not. And we have a few things we'd like to share about what we see companies who are on the leading edge doing and what's working versus what's not working. Like those are totally different messages. But this one is, I get something out of it. This one, I only get something if I buy your product, which I know I'm probably not going to, so I'm less likely to do it. So instead of pushing the product, first educate the buyer. You cannot make buying decisions when you lack buying confidence, but we're asking people to do that. We're asking people to sign up for demos. And then we're wondering why nobody wants to like respond to anything. Like that to me is where the execution failure right now is falling down a lot.
You know, you made me think about just the fact that as sellers, you know, we sell this solution day in and day out. It's what we do. But if we think about it on the buyer side, they may buy this solution one or two times in their career. So they really don't know how to buy or all the things that are involved, what the risks are, what the options are. And man, if we focus more on helping them make an informed purchase decision and not lead with our product, I think that might help with that too. And that's a really great point, Jen. That was great.
Exactly.
Okay, last one. This one, I'm sure you're going to have a lot to share with me. I kind of chuckled when I saw it, but you know, getting into the C-suite, we know ultimately we have our champions, but we've got to get up to that C-suite if we're going to win deals. And what you guys told us was that getting into the C-suite is incredibly challenging. And the majority of you said that it really depends on the skill set of the seller. And man, I just kind of cried a little bit because who wants to bank their business on how good or bad your sales team is? We should try to figure out how do we processize that or systematize that. Jen, what do you think about that? How do you deal with that?
So I would say this is probably the number one thing when I'm coming in for a workshop. It's the number one problem that the sales leader is trying to solve, which is we're having the wrong conversation, often with the right person. Meaning I might be able to schedule time with I don't know, let's just say the COO. But then I get to that call and I have the same conversation that I would have with the person that's 16 layers down. And there's memory recall to that, right? So the next time that COO gets a message from a seller, if they see common patterns that they saw the last time in the note, they're going to jump to conclusions and say, I can kind of predict the future. I'm going to probably pass this down 16 layers because my job isn't to shop for tools. My job is to mitigate risk for this business, to have big ideas. And I'm not seeing that anywhere in this note. So a lot of times this is our own fault because again, to beat this dead horse that's already dead, we are so interested in talking about our solution instead of showing someone there is credible ideas, insights, pattern recognizing that we've done that we can share with them that warrants a conversation in and of itself. And I think the problem with it is it's a slower path to get to a better outcome. And we don't like that, right? We like to go as fast as possible. It's the law of least effort. Like it's how humans have evolved as a species. But we have to recognize that and get out of our own way. Because the faster we get to solution without defining a thoughtful business problem just means we just worked through the process faster, but we got no further forward.
Yeah. Yeah. There's an overarching theme too, when I think about this, and it's that pressure to get leads now, to get sales now. And so we kind of forgot that there's trust and all these other things that we need to earn. And if we did all that stuff first, rather than just trying to pitch somebody that doesn't know who we are, it's easier to get into the C-suite. It's easier to get engagement to turn into pipeline. One of the things we talk about all the time on the Growth Show is like, this is one of our biggest sources of pipeline growth is the B2B Growth Show. But you'll never hear me pitch anybody on this show, but we just use it as a trust builder. And then when people have needs, they reach out to us and say, hey, I'm ready to go. And the reality is those close faster. They usually close at a higher deal amount because there's not a lot of competition. But people think, oh, I need deals now. So I've got to go after now buyers and look at that intent data and pitch slap the crap out of people and hope that some of them will buy. And those are really hard to get to the C-suite. But I can promise you when people reach out to us and want to talk, it's real easy for us to get to the C-suite and have that conversation. So
because you are known, right? It's like so much of this is buyers having been burnt before. And so I want to know before I risk my political capital, you're not going to make me look bad by the time I get to consensus. So I guarantee there are people on this who tune into this show who've been watching, month after month, who say, man, if my CMO would have asked Paul that question or my CEO would have asked Paul that question, he would have nailed it. And that builds trust. And I agree with you. I think trust is the missing ingredient, especially now that there's like a solution for everything at any time at all the places. It's like trust is just, Salesforce actually has been studying this. Trust fell off a cliff in 2024. It went from like, you got basically like 50% of buyers who trust you and 50% that don't, to 72% of buyers said they trust vendors less this year than last year. And that was in 24, which is when AI started to get really
I was just
popular.
thinking that's probably
I wonder what caused that.
It's funny how that happens. Well, so that's great. One of the things we're going to do, I'm excited about it, is to walk through the buyer journey here in a minute. But I want to give us a couple of chances, and really you, Jen, more than anybody, just to take a step back. We looked at the survey, but are there other things that are just you're seeing that are challenging with pipeline production in 2026? What's different this year than it was last year? Things that we haven't touched on. I know we've covered a lot of topics already, but anything kind of stick out to you as the biggest impediment to producing predictable pipeline in 26?
Yeah. So, this is different for different industries, but the one I've been talking a lot about is just this new flavor of status quo, which is like, could I build it? Not saying I should build it, not saying it's better if I do, but there's a really interesting dynamic, which is if your CEO or your PE partners are saying, we need you to operationalize AI, and you're talking to an AI vendor, but you're also messing around in Claude, you actually look better to your CEO if you create a subpar product in Claude to share back and say, look, I built it. That is a really interesting competitor, right? Because that same person might even say, look, I know it's not as great as what you're offering, but I get a pat on the back if I build this in-house. That is something I think like we're starting to see it now. It's just going to get like the rate of product development at Claude is like so insane that who knows how quickly this will happen. But I think we're going to start to see that be a new flavor where the rep is selling the story of we have a better way. And the buyer saying, no disagreement. I just don't care because I look better by doing it myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other part, which we'll touch on a little bit later on too, is just there's so much going on. It's easier just to lean on, hey, we've done it this way for 25 years. Yeah, it's a spreadsheet, or hey, maybe a spreadsheet and Claude might get us closer. So do I really need this expensive SaaS product or this, new service? And we're in professional services. So, hey, I don't need a marketing department. Why do I need a marketing department? I've got Claude. I can just go to Claude and it'll write my emails and do all those things. So it's a new level of almost status quo on steroids, it feels like.
I don't know if you saw this too, but I saw someone who is a known thought leader in our space talking about how they built an AI VP of marketing. So nobody needs a VP of marketing anymore. And it's like little things like that have such an effect because there's this ego that people associate with, and it's human nature. We all have egos, which is like, I want to be seen as a forward thinking person. So maybe I should mess around with that. And whether they go with it or not, the impact there is the sales cycle extends, right? Because now I've got to at least explore it. And so maybe I used to have a sales cycle that took me 30 days, but if I'm in one of those spaces where people are like, could I build it? Now maybe that's taking me 5-6 months to get to the same exact outcome. That is horrible economics for a business. So I think it's really hard. I empathize with people.
Yeah, I do have a little bit of a crystal ball because I've been around long enough to see this game played. It's funny how things go around and come around. But in the 90s, I was a technology sales guy. So I sold to companies that had mainframes, and everybody had mainframes back then, their own data centers. Nothing was in the cloud. Cloud didn't exist. And you know why they had mainframes? Because they were building their own software. That's why they had them. Because if I was Exxon or I was any Fortune 100, I didn't go buy software. I built it and put it on my mainframe. And then all of a sudden, places like Salesforce came along and said, your core business is oil and gas. Why the heck are you building software? Just buy it from me and it'll be way cheaper for you. And people were like, oh, that's great. And that was the creation of SaaS. And now 30 years later, people are like, why do I buy? I can just go build it myself. It's like we've gone in this complete big circle. It's just completely crazy. So who knows? I think people are going to find the point to that ramble was eventually the reason why people like Salesforce is that's right. My core business is something else. Why am I spending all this time playing with AI or trying to build my own software when I can just go to somebody that's done it a million times and can give me a much better solution cheaper? And I think we're not there yet because we're in this chasm where it's all sexy and cool and people are having fun with it. But I think we're going to see that eventually. I certainly believe it's going to happen on the content side. I mean, we can spot AI generated slop a mile away, and we still want that human connection.
Did you see that article? It was like the best thing I ever saw. I don't even know what the source is, so I hate that I'm not sourcing the person that said like the increase in it's not the X, it's Y language in the past 10 years. And it was like this and then went like that. And I was like, thank you, whoever did this. It is so obvious, but everybody's like, use AI. There's no big difference. And I love data like that. That's like, no, we can tell.
We can tell. And then it's got M dashes between every other word, right?
It's so recursive. It's basing everything off of itself. And so it just sounds all the same.
Well, yeah. And, it learned on great writing. And so when you hear those if-then type statements, 1 out of 1,000 statements, it has some appeal. But when everything you read is that, it's like, whoa, so uncanny. Okay, before we jump into the framework and discuss the framework, are there any other just sales and marketing alignment challenges? We've talked about pipeline production and the survey results, but just as you look at the relationship between the two departments, what are things that you're seeing just being barriers to success?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing to me is just difference in belief systems. Like, if I am a VP of sales and I am a VP of marketing, I am entitled and able to have different belief systems around what makes customers want to spend time with us, what makes customers want to lean into change, even though we know change is scary, risky, costly, what the job of marketing is, what the job of sales is. Like, I think sometimes everything else around it is noise. It comes down to, do we actually share the same belief and assumption statements about the job to be done, how we're doing it, and what matters to buyers? And I think if you can get that right, if you can just the best organizations that I've worked with who truly have sales and marketing alignment, it's because they have the same belief. And it doesn't mean they agree on everything, but they can always ground themselves in that belief statement. And I think that's honestly absent. So if I were to try to fix sales and marketing alignment, which I'm not naive enough to try to do, step number 1 would be what do you actually believe? Go in a dark room, write those statements down, then come together. Don't do it in the moment together because you're just going to try to appeal to each other's answers, but see where your conflict arises, because I guarantee the downstream execution is built off the belief system. It's not built off of I just love the way we do this process. It's I need to change my belief system about it. That to me is the bigger problem.
Yeah. The one thing I would add to that, I agree 100%, is the word system. I feel like I was hopeful that ABM was going to solve this, right? Because ABM in itself is kind of a system. It's hey, let's pick some target accounts. Let's work them together. Let's tier them out. Sales, you do this on the top tiers. This is what we're going to do to support the second and third tiers. And that kind of felt hey, this is getting us aligned, but it didn't fix the belief problem. And that's it. At least in our world, we work with primarily B2B companies that have been traditionally very sales led. And so the sales organization still feels like The marketing department is the make it pretty department. The marketing department puts logos on things, except when I need leads. And then I want them to go get me, teed up perfectly on a silver platter, high intent, ready to go leads. And when they require any effort at all, I call them crap leads, when really they probably just need to be nurtured, right?
But can I tell you, that's a perfect example what you just raised. Do you know when I learned what ABM was? 19 years into my career, which is exactly 1 year after I left sales. It's
Wow.
it's stuff like that to me that I'm like, why do we make a simple concept overcomplicated by putting weird marketing terminology to it? Like if
So
you
we
had
can
just
sell
told
more.
me,
It's a way for me
right?
to differentiate and sell
It's
more
like-
stuff.
That's the thing. It's simple stuff like that. I never knew what anybody was talking about when they were talking about account-based marketing. I'm like, oh, here's another marketing thing
Right.
that's designed to make marketing look good, because even in the name, account-based marketing sounds like it benefits the marketing department. So I think some of this stuff is so simple. It's like, just speak clearly like a fifth grader around what we're trying to do. You can say ABM behind closed doors, but to me as a seller, like I never knew what the hell you were talking about. Not you, but like what the hell they were talking about with this campaign. What's a performance marketer? Shouldn't everybody be performing? What's a growth marketer? Aren't we all
I'm an
trying to grow? Like,
underperformance marketer. I'm a crappy marketer. That's what we.
right?
That's so
Some
funny.
of the stuff is how we talk about
we try
it.
to change the conversation to be partnering, buyer enablement, or partnering in the pursuit of the buyer, and really coming together, sales and marketing, and building a system that nurtures buyers over time, and understanding, hey, at this stage of the journey, this is the information requirements that our buyer has. Who's going to deliver it? Is that going to be a marketing delivery, or is that going to be a sales delivery? Is it going to be combo? I mean, that's where we can get together and fix those belief issues like you were talking about.
And one quick thing. So Denise asked a question in the chat. She said, our sales cycles are getting longer and longer with RFP delays. Are you seeing this? First, anyone else who's in the chat, like weigh in, because y'all are living this too, I'm sure.
Wow.
Denise, I will say for clients that I work with that have RFPs, 100%. And the common denominator is because the group keeps getting bigger. So whether that's because now we're also evaluating solutions that have pieces of it that touch different stakeholders. Like now I need data privacy, or I need, our CEO on or CIO on here, and that's expanding the group, or it's a risk mitigation play. I think it is natural to assume that when you get a group of people together, they're going to disagree. And I did a study with Gong at the end of last year looking at for closed won and lost deals at certain price points, like how many people get involved. And at the 250K price point, which I don't know where yours is, but RFPs are usually for bigger deals, it was closed lost deals had an average of 5 stakeholders included. Closed won deals had an average of 17. So imagine trying to get 17 people to agree on lunch, let alone a solution. So I think it's really natural to see these delays happening.
Yeah. And I think it also goes back to you touched on it earlier, just uncertainty. Like, man, whenever there's things with the economy, there's things with global activities going on, like wars and all that, people just are like, can we delay this? Do we really have to buy anything right now? Can't we just live with what we've got for a little bit longer until we can figure out where this world is going? And I think we're living with some of that right now too, for sure. The other thing that just the lack of trust. So it's a belief thing, but it's also a trust thing. I don't think the sales department really trusts the marketing department to do what they need to do to warm up an account. And I don't think the marketing department trusts the sellers to go do the right things to get it across the finish line and to build consensus and context and all those things. I think that's a big challenge. I shared a post the other day about the fact that 90% of marketing materials that are created today are never used by sales. And at the same time, sellers spend 30 hours a month, which is almost a week a month, building their own AI generated, AI slop, AI crap assets that they're sending out to customers. And that's just, to me, that points to lack of trust, right? We don't have what we want. We're just going to build it ourselves. We don't trust marketing to give us what we want. So great. Well, let's jump into this. Great conversation so far. I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. We're getting there. I know it. All right. I can do it. I had to put this slide in today. It's actually not tied to the framework, but I have used this slide for years and years and years. And the reality is, if we can get this, we're off to the races to building a belief system that's aligned, like you were talking about, Jen. But we all we are on the same team. It's like, can you imagine, like, whoever the football team that wins a Super Bowl, It's not the defense that wins the team. It's not the offense that wins the team. It's the team that wins the game. It's the team that wins the game. And we need to think like that. So we have complementary roles. And, the job of marketing is to chum the water. And then we let the sales rep get all the glory. And that's okay. In my book, that's okay, right? We want them to get the glory, but we have to do the work in order for that to happen. If the sales rep went out deep sea fishing and there was no chumming, they wouldn't come back with any fish, right? So if we did all the chumming and we didn't have a seller to go create the context and to build consensus internally and to make that really relevant to the customer, we wouldn't get the deal. So we have to live together. We've got to find a way to make it work together. And so what I wanted to do is introduce you guys to our pipeline growth framework. This is the process that we use to help customers build systems that basically accomplish some of these things. And you'll notice that sales and marketing alignment is in the hub. It is like the hub. If it's not there, then this becomes a wheel that's like the grocery cart wheel that you get that's all wobbly and you got to push it all over the grocery store and it drives you crazy. So we're going to try to fix that today. And so what I asked Jen to do is just work with me as we go through each of these stages to just think about how can we do a better job together. And we're going to start at planning and signals. And so, and then we'll break through each of the spokes a little bit later on. But, Jen, let's just take like planning, which is figuring out who we're trying to sell to, and then signals, which is getting them to do something online that we can capture. How can we do a better job from a selling or marketing perspective to support that?
So I love this question because I think it's like such a fundamental question that we just assume people get. When I do my workshops, so I'll come in and help companies figure out like outbound pipeline, right? And I'll ask every seller in the room, what are the business problems that we solve? And more often than not, the answers I get are like, we help companies do this faster. I'm like, not a business problem, right? Or we're the leading provider of whatever. I'm like, not a business problem. And it's because, again, this isn't against any one seller or any one leader. It goes back to like, even what you had around like it's sales job to close the lead, like you chum the water, you close the lead. I would say it's both of our jobs to chum the water now. Like we don't have that luxury of pipeline coming everywhere. Like we both have to do it. But because we haven't done it in so long, where do we pop in? Well, we help companies do this. And so to me, I think before you look at signals, before you look at any of this stuff, there needs to be a clear shared understanding across both groups around like, what are the business problems that we solve? What are evidence that those business problems exist? And where do we find those things? Like those are not three earth-shattering questions. But when I ask that, it's like, oh, well, we like when a new CFO comes in, or we like when a new CIO comes in. I'm like, right, but why? Because it makes the biggest business problem bigger? Like, what about it? Or is it just you heard some stat somewhere that like a new in-seat buyer is more likely to buy if you can get to them faster? So I just think there's a lot of broken logic that, again, is grounded on how do we get this thing done the fastest? I'm very interested in signals that are like, this is a signal that dictates the problem is harder. I'll give you a very specific example, just so I'm not speaking in theory. One of my clients sells robotics, like robotic welders, to big manufacturing companies. If they see that one of those big manufacturing companies opens a new plant somewhere, they know that that company is now going to need to hire a bunch of welders. So that is a problem because there's a welder shortage. So for them, a new plant opening is a business problem anchor because that means now someone's going to have to find a bunch of welders and nobody wants to be a welder anymore. But just saying like a company opened a new business or a new plant, so that means there is all this upside of how many welders they could hire. That is solution first thinking. So I think there's a pretty distinct difference.
Yeah. And I would just on the marketing side, this is a challenge I see all the time, and it ties back to just really ICP definition because, companies want to sell to everybody. Hey, if you can fog a mirror and write a check, that's who I want, right? So let's just market to everybody. And the challenge with that is even if we could sell to everybody, maybe that's not who we focus our efforts on. And so really trying to identify who do we sell to the best? Like, what is that little niche market that, man, they love, love, love us? And what message and business problem can we really solve and get them focused on? And I can tell you from our side, marketers struggle with that because, they want to sell everything. Maybe that niche is one of multiple companies or types of companies they could sell to. And they feel like, oh my gosh, if I focus on this one niche, which we can really serve well in the market and really build our marketing messaging around, I'm kind of not doing the right things for these other niches. And the reality is it's way, way better to focus my marketing efforts and get sales aligned with that. So they know, hey, we're right now for this quarter or this year, we're going after these folks. These are the problems that they have. And that gets you to your point, Jen. You can get really down in the weeds and specific things that keep them awake at night. So it's not, improve optimization. It's, hey, you've got a welder shortage. We know you're dealing with that. Here's some information that might help you think about how to solve that problem. That's way better than the 50,000 foot problems that most people try to solve with like personas and things like that.
Amen to all of that. Like if you get down to the point of execution, my note to them is, looks like you opened up this new, Shreveport facility. Not sure if you are up against this like 400K welder shortage that exists out there, but this other company was, and they had a really great idea, different idea of how to get around it. Are you open to hearing what they did? That is something somebody's job is to do versus like, I'd love to share more about our AI welding robot, which will get you to production X 100% faster. It's like, dude, I don't even have people hired yet. Like,
right.
And so I think, but I agree with you. It's like, we're so concerned around what might we miss out. And my other problem as a seller is I was always focused on like demographic fit. So I'm going to focus on these companies because they have the biggest sales teams, which mean I could sell the biggest deals. Okay, but if they don't have the problem that our solution solves, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter.
Right.
But we are so scared of making firm decisions, learning from them, and then shifting the next quarter. Like these are not set in stone. It is okay to make a bet, be slightly wrong, and then shift a little bit. But I just feel like sometimes to your point, it's like we just got to do the catch-all to everybody. And that's why sales ends up with all these leads that we have no interest in working anyway.
Yeah. One other thing before we move on, just about signals that I see on the marketing side people struggle with, and that is they still believe that their website is the place where signals are captured and that everything kind of starts at the website. And the reality is we need to start thinking about our buyers' feed as our new homepage, because we got to deliver the message where they're spending time online and not wait for them to come to our website. Because what we're seeing is traffic is down across the board, but the traffic that does come to your website is way more qualified because they're getting the knowledge that they need and the information that they need in their social circles and not on your website. And so we need to define signals as things that are like, did I put something out in social media? Did people consume it? Did they come to a LinkedIn Live like this event? Those are signals that we need to start thinking about capturing as well. Okay, well, let's move on. I'm going to share my screen again just so we can see what the next one is. Gosh, I'm like struggling so much today.
You're killing it, Paul.
I know,
You're doing so great. It's a little gas up Paul session.
I know. Okay, there we go. Why is it's not sharing? Okay.
Well, while I was talking about that, I was thinking that when you were talking about specificity, Jen, that that's really a strength of sales. That like when we're talking about sales and marketing as like a team, all teams have strengths and weaknesses on certain people, and that's a really strong strength of sales where you're able to get a lot more specific than marketing will ever be able to get. I mean, marketing's gotten a lot better about personalization and segmentation, but sales can actually really speak to the individual a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about context, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Okay, I figured it out. So now we've talked about planning and signals. Let's talk about activating your audience, which is the things that we do outside of our website on a sales or marketing perspective, where we're spending time where our buyers are online learning about the solutions or just staying connected with their community. So what is selling doing? How can sellers do a better job? And then we'll also talk about marketing and just activating our audience, letting people know that we exist and the problems that we solve, but doing it in a way that's not creepy or salesy. Like, Jen, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think this is a big one. Like I said before, I don't subscribe to the idea that it's like marketing's job to build demand and then I convert it. I think we both have to do that. And I, as an individual, carry an ability to do that in a way that a brand cannot. So I was just at a conference last week, and the whole panel I was on was talking about how people trust people more than they trust brands at this stage. It doesn't mean you don't do trust building work with brands. It just means, why would you sit on human beings that can influence change? And so I think what's really essential is, instead of operating in this, like, this is what our product does and this is why it's great space, I think the world we're in now is so much harder, where I, as a seller, have to have context on the industry that my prospect operates in and the forces that are driving change within that industry. So, for example, if I'm selling to a logistics company right now, I have to understand, what is the impact of this war having on a business where costs are fluctuating in a way that's totally unpredictable. It is not acceptable for me to show up to a call and be like, so what's going on lately, right? It's like, I don't know, turn on the TV. So it's like, I think when we look at this particular stage, one, we have to learn like our buyers learn. One thing I tell reps all the time, go to Claude, ask, I'm a CIO. What are the most popular places where CIOs go to learn? Follow those channels, learn from those channels, be a student of what your buyer is learning about. And then two is, I have to then pair that with, what is that company trying to do? And I have to bring a shared understanding with that context. I think what is totally unacceptable now is that we're just like, oh, I know a lot of companies are looking to implement AI, so I'd love to show you our AI tool. That's probably not effective. But if I can say, listen, I know a lot of sales leaders are weighing the decision around, where do we use AI? Where do we not? Where does it make sense to have a people-led motion? Would you be interested in hearing some of the things we've learned from A, B, and C companies and how they're thinking about it? Like, I think we have to be conduits of learning. And that's the unique position that we're in, is we have all these conversations as sales. We just tend to undervalue it.
Yeah, I love the way you position that is so missing in the market, because you're not, hey, let me feature dump on you, but you're really talking about, how can I help you think about this in a way that would be beneficial to you? It goes back to learning. And I'll tell you, on the marketing side, from Activate Your Audience, one of the challenges that we see is that companies want to deliver the same message to everybody. So let's take just LinkedIn ads, for example. They figure out what their ICP is. Maybe they get that right. They come up with some core messages that they think are important, and then they blast it out to everybody. And so every time I log into LinkedIn, if they're running a paid campaign, I'm getting the same message that everybody else is getting. And in today's world, with segmenting and everything else, that's just silly, because we can deliver very pinpoint messages. Almost take that message that you just described, Jen, about, hey, let me help you think about how to leverage AI versus let me feature dump on our AI features. That message can be delivered with precision today in channels like LinkedIn if we segment our data correctly. And then we need to also have respect for the buyer journey. Like, if I'm top of the funnel and I don't know your brand exists today, that's a different message at the top of the funnel than if I've been engaging with your brand a little bit longer and I'm farther down the quote unquote journey, or at least I'm familiar with your brand and I'm starting to build trust. We want to start bringing in like user generated content or tools or things that'll help them evaluate, instead of, hey, this is my message, I'm delivering it to everybody. I don't care what segment you're in. I don't care where you are in the journey. And what we found is that works so much better, because you can easily do this today. And I'm mentioning LinkedIn, but this could be with your emails and all types of things. One of the reasons why we do the Growth Show is for us to be able to build a community and to see and get these segments like that. So when somebody comes to, and this is a great sales and marketing alignment tip, like when we run a Growth Show, we've got people that come every single month. We have people that are newbies. They've been here for the very first time. We have different sales plays for that. So if somebody's been here and they're a veteran, we're going to follow up with them completely differently on a marketing perspective and a sales perspective. We also do these on LinkedIn so that our sellers, which is basically me, but you can do this, you can represent this anywhere in any company, but we do the LinkedIn event. One, so that we can stream like we're doing right now, but two, so our sellers can go in and invite their first connections to come to this event. Those are great examples of how we can activate our audience and do it a little bit differently. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is, and I got to find it. Here we go. And I am going to.
Paul, this is your question, not me. Amy Ferguson has a good question in the chat that I think is like more up your alley than mine.
Yeah. What would you advise to those of us who have marketing colleagues who don't believe in the value of LinkedIn advertising for a highly targeted physician audience? Well, so that's a great question, Amy, and happy to take that offline too. But at the end of the day, the channel is dictated by the audience. And so, the step one is figure out who our audience is. Step two, like you said, Jen, is go figure out where that audience is hanging out online. And if they are hanging out online, then we want to be in that channel. So physicians, and I don't know enough about physicians, maybe that isn't the channel, but there might be other channels where they are. Another one that I'm telling you we're having great success with is like newsletter insertions, where we'll go and find a very relevant niche-y newsletter. And like we promote this growth show in a newsletter that goes out to B2B marketers. We get great results from that. But Amy, happy to talk to you about that offline, and we can maybe do some stuff on ChatGPT and figure out where those people are hanging out, or Claude. I guess Claude is the new ChatGPT, right? So
Today, at least.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how that all changes. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So we talked about activate your audience. The next one is establish authority, which is now that they know who we are and we've activated them, they know the problem that we solve. What are we doing to establish or validate to them that we're qualified to solve the problem that they have? And I always like to add the empathy one. It's not only that we're qualified and we know how to solve their problem. And Jen, you kind of talk about this a lot too. We don't want to talk down to our audience, but we want to have an empathy like, hey, we get it. And not only do we get it, but we want to help you. Like we are motivated to help you solve this problem. So what can we do there, Jen?
Yeah. So I think this is a one I love because I spent so much time working for the Challenger sales organization. And if anybody knows that methodology, anyone who never read the book, like looked at the cover and was like, oh, this means just like be a professor to your prospects. That's not it at all. And I think the word expertise is a really dangerous one that we can get carried away with, particularly on the sales side, where someone signs up for a conversation and then I just talk at them the whole time. So I think there's one big characteristic on the sales execution side of how I teach this, which is the goal should be to be specific, but seek to be corrected, not correct. And what I mean by that is if I come to a conversation and I say, oh, I see you're in this industry, which means you must be struggling to do this. All of a sudden I'm alienating my buyer, right? Like you are a sales rep who've never talked to me and you act like you think you know more about what I'm doing than I do. I'm not going to open up to that. But if I take the time using every free AI tool that's out there to say, listen, it seems like as an outsider, the business is focused on growing the e-commerce function, like the revenue from e-commerce by 25%. But when I looked at the team, it looks like there's 3 or 4 folks that have been there for a few years. And I saw there's been a bunch of open hires. I'm not sure if that means this. When you use phrasing like not sure if, what it does is it invites a correction. If you use a phrase like, do I have that right? Like seeking validation, seeking to be correct, people will say, yeah, sure, I guess it's close enough. If I specifically ask you to correct me, I almost always learn something I couldn't find in my own research. That is discovery, right? Like now I'm actually getting into the good things. But my entry ticket to that is being specific and well-researched enough about their business that I earn that right instead of asking an open-ended question like, can you tell me what like the most important priorities are in your business today? So I think on the sales side, I'm throwing sales under the bus a lot today, which I think is unexpected, but I think we have to be step up to the plate a little bit more with the excuse of I don't have time to is no longer a real thing. AI can prep me for a call in 20 seconds. I now have to take that step of taking that prep and build it into the call, but doing so in a way that is empathetic to the fact that the world is totally crazy right now and most people are doing the best they can, but also that just because I have research does not mean I know everything about the optics of their business.
Yeah. One thing you said there, it's that hypothesis concept where it's like, because immediately you're saying, I've done my homework, right? I've done my homework. I've done some research. I've got some thoughts about what may be going on in your business. I think that's so excellent. On the marketing side, when it comes to establishing authority, I think there's we just want to go from, hey, this is what we do, to give it to the sales rep and let them go deal with it. But the reality is there's a lot we need to do in that middle area to support what the sellers are trying to do. And the concept that we have here at Vindy, which we talk about a lot, is this becoming a go-to resource. And so our thoughts are, and this is a tag team thing we can do with sellers, is how do we take this engaged audience that we've engaged with, at the top of the funnel or activate your audience stage? How do we really become their go-to resource? What would that look like? How do we partner in their pursuit? What information and requirements do they have? What modality can we deliver that to them? And then who's the best person to deliver it? Should we do it as a retargeting campaign in social media or online? Should we give it to the sellers and sales enablement and give them some coaching on how to go talk to customers about it? Do we go build a tool? Like I will say last year, as soon as all this cloud code stuff started happening, I went to Lovable and I built a pipeline growth assessment because I thought, man, how cool would it be for people to go in and do an assessment by answering some questions and get some feedback. I mean, that's an example of a tool. It wasn't easy. So I'm not saying that's the way to go. I mean, I had like the prototype up in 2 hours, but then it took me like 2 days to get it to where it was a product that was worth putting out in the market. But the point is, serve the buyer and become a go-to resource for them, but do it in partnership with sales. One of the other things that I feel like we struggle with as marketers is really teeing up relevant prospects where they're in this stage. We love giving sellers people that, raise their hand, but are learners, as you talked about earlier, Jen. But can we do a better job as marketers to actually find somebody that's ready to go deeper and then hand those off to sellers? There's a way for us to accomplish that. So I would put the burden back on, Jen, you keep throwing the sales team under the bus. I want to equally do the same on the marketing side. What can we do to not just hand off contacts, email addresses, or whatever with no context around it, but actually give them people that are signaling and surging. These folks are ready for a conversation. They want to go deeper. And here's what to do with those folks. All right, let's move on to the next one. I just looked at the clock. We got like 8 minutes left. So I'm going to speed us up a little bit here. And hold on one second. I'm going to share my screen so we can get to that last one. Almost there. Okay, here we go. We actually have two more, but maybe we cover both of these in one session. So nurture relationships is how do we stay top of mind with those buyers? A lot of people here have long sales cycles. Some of the folks, a lot of B2Bs even have quiet periods. Denise talked about an RFP. Sometimes sellers aren't even allowed to talk to their POCs during that RFP quiet period. So what can we do to stay top of mind with folks? Like early cycle, maybe they're not, maybe we don't have an open deal with them yet, but we know that they're learners and they're interested in what we have to say. So what do we do with those folks to stay top of mind with them over time? And then I'm going to go ahead and lump in growth and retention, which is really just, the way I interpret that is, how do we ensure that the buyer that we sell to gets the value that we promised so that 6 months from now, a year from now, they're out there talking to people about how great we are. So Jen, I'm going to toss the baton over to you.
I think these both have the same theme. So I'm just going to have both of the same one, which is go back to the job to be done of the buyer, right? Like what is the business that they work for? What are they trying to achieve? And then what is making it hard for them to achieve that outside of just your product, right? Like I think we also have to listen with intention around what are all the things surrounding. So there is not a single quarter I've ever had since I started this business where someone I talked to 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago comes up because I shared something on LinkedIn or they saw me in a show like this talking about something where they're like, oh, that's it now. But if I'm intentionally doing it in a targeted way, I'm never hitting people with, hey, is now a better time to talk about training your sales team? Or, hey, I saw you hired some sales reps. Does that mean you're looking to hire, a sales trainer? I don't ever do that stuff because it's too solution oriented. What I will do is if I see a company that's public, like posting, hey, we're evaluating Gong versus Sybil, what I might do is send to that buyer, hey, I remember when we last spoke, you were trying to move up market into enterprise. Not sure if the post you did about Gong has backed into that, but I've got a couple other clients in the space who have also used it and can share some perspective who are also trying to do similar things. Do you want me to make an introduction to that? Like you truly have to be selfless to win at sales, especially as you go up market. But I'm always thinking about what is that job to be done I learned about in the beginning, whether it's a CS motion, coming back to like, do we have new ways to support it? Or if it's a nurturing you can't buy right now, I'm always trying to think, what are they trying to do? What can I do from my outsider perspective to help them in that pursuit of getting to that?
Yeah, so good. So good. On the marketing side, I guess maybe AI has something to do with this, but really it's marketing automation and CRM software. For some reason, marketers believe that personalization means putting somebody's name in their email and then just blasting it out to everybody. And that is the, nurture relationship strategy. And it just doesn't work. And it's really bad, and on top of that, Jen, you were saying this, I think, on a podcast I was listening to the other day. You pulled up your, maybe it was a webinar, you pulled up your inbox and you said, I'm like a company of one. Look at all of these
nobody.
we emails, right? And you talked about the we problem. And so what we do is we think nurturing relationships is all about sending a personalized email because it has the company's name in it and then just feature dumping all over them. And that doesn't work. And so what we recommend is actually introducing this learner stage and then segmenting within the learner stage. So imagine your life cycle stages in your CRM. Instead of contact, prospect, opportunity, go contact, learner, and then segment those learners based on what they're actually learning about, and then partnering in their pursuit or becoming that go-to resource. To your point, Jen, let's be very non-salesy in this regard and support the buyer and what they're trying to achieve. Another reason why we love the Growth Show, I know I keep talking about it, but it's just a great evidence to how this stuff works, because the fact that we're here every single month, we're building relationships, but we're also understanding what content people like and where they are. So if somebody registers for a show about sales and marketing alignment, we kind of have an understanding. Maybe this person has some issues that they want to learn more about around sales and marketing alignment. And so it also feeds our content flywheel, which then allows us after the event in the future. Let's say somebody came to this growth show 6 months from now, they may get some tips from us about sales and marketing alignment. And a lot of that content actually came from the transcripts and things like that from the show. So if we can just be smart about it, then we can actually partner in their pursuit without a big heavy lift. The stuff we're talking about isn't like going and buying new software. It's just being a little bit smarter about the way that we do things.
Amen.
So I just looked at the clock. We got like 3 minutes left. And so, Jen, I just wanted to give everybody an opportunity to learn a little bit more about you. I think we talked about it a little bit at the top of the show. Jen is a force of one, but quite frankly, as I said, truly one of the smartest minds in modern B2B marketing or selling. I think you guys realize that today. She does great SKOs and workshops, and you just introduced a course too, right?
I did. Yeah. At the beginning of the year, I have some folks that say, like, we can't bring you in, but we'd like to have sellers learn the way that you teach outbound or discovery or selling to bigger buying groups and champion management and all that stuff. And so the course is available on 30 Minutes to President's Club's website. It's called Selling to the C-Suite. And then my workshops are really like, right now, it's like a lot of teams who are saying we're picking up on these themes and QBRs. Like we keep losing deals mid-stage, like we saw in your research in the beginning. We know we got to get ahead of that problem. Can you come in and do a working session with our sellers on real deals to help them fix it? So that's what I'm spending my time doing now that SKO season is over.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we have a link to your course in the agenda. So if you guys want to go check that out, and we have links to Jen's LinkedIn profile as well as her website in the agenda. So be sure to check those out. Man, I'm telling you, Jen, I wish every one of our clients could bring you in for a workshop or an SKO.
Vice versa.
It's the biggest challenge. I hear it more than just about anything. It's like we're doing all this stuff to create demand. We just don't know what we need, how to get sellers to do something with it. And man, you've given so many practical tips. If all the sellers of the clients that we work with had the same concepts that you have, I know that they would be successful. So
that's very nice.
Thanks everybody for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Please follow Jen, and we'll see you next month. We're going to be talking about the neuroscience of messaging. Big topic, but really, believe it or not, our brains, most people's brains work in a particular way. And if we can figure out how to become part of that conversation that's going on in their head about how to solve problems, our marketing messages will actually resonate and hit home. And that's what we're going to be talking about next month. So hopefully you can join us. Jen, thank you so much. It's awesome to have you. I hope we get you back on next year for a three-peat. That would be amazing.
Love it. Thank you. And thank you, everybody.
Take care, everybody. Thank you. Bye.